In last lecture, we have started with the functions in C. We have a short recap on that, and then we will go further in functions in C. So we have gone through what are the functions, why we use function in C programming. Every program is having a function that is main, and there can be additional functions too. And there is no limit. We can have many functions as we can handle it. But there are some pros and cons to use functions. Then we go through what is the return type of a function, how we can select the good function name, and then the parameters, function body, all these things we have gone through. Then the type of the function. There are two types of the function in C programming: standard library function and user-defined functions. Standard library functions we can include with the inclusion of the header file. Each header file contains some standard library functions. So by including some header file, we can have that function and we can call that function, we can use that function without defining it. Whereas user-defined functions, we need to define it, we need to call it, we need to declare it. Three things regarding the functions are required. Every function, before using it, we need to give the prototype. It means the declaration. Then we need to call that function for a particular task, and at the time of calling, that compiler's control will go to the function. So we need to define that function so that compiler can evaluate it or execute it. Then there are four types of user-defined functions. We have gone through the three types initially. First in category is no argument pass and no return value. So the example of that category is this. Here in this example, we need to check the given number is prime or not. As we are not passing any argument and this function is not returning anything, so three things are important here. First thing is the declaration part, this one. So at the time of declaration, as this function is not returning any value, so we need to use void keyword here instead of writing any data type in front of the function name. Then at the time of declaration, we need to use this empty bracket as our function is not taking any argument. So this is the first category. Then if we want to declare such kind of function, we need to write like this: void function name and the empty bracket ended with the semicolon, right? The first thing is declaration. After that, we need to call the function for the particular purpose. If we want to check the given number is prime or not, here in this example, we need to call the function. At the time of calling, what I need to write? The function name and empty bracket followed by semicolon, because this function is not taking any argument from the driver function, that is main here. And this function is not returning any value. So such kind of function which are not taking any argument, which are not returning any value, need to call like this with the function name and empty bracket followed by semicolon, right? Then the third important thing is the function definition. This is the function definition here, right? Okay. So in this function definition, there are two things. One is the function header. Function header we need to write similarly like the declaration, only we will not use this semicolon here at the time of function definition header. Okay. And in curly braces, what we will write? We will write the logic of the function. So whatever the logic of the function, we will write that. In first category of the function, where this function is not taking any argument and it is not returning any value, in this, what we need to remember, we need to take input from the user. Here in these two lines, we are taking input from the user. First line is the printf statement, where we are just indicating to the users that they need to enter a positive integer, and the scanf, through scanf function, we are allowing user to give some value to that variable n. So this step we need to carry in the function definition. So the input we will take in the function, inside the function, and all the outputs, whatever we get through the function, we will write or we will print here in this function definition. So here we are checking that number is prime or not by these statements, and if that flag value is 1, then we are concluding that given number is not a prime number. So if flag is 0, then we are concluding that number is prime number. So what we are doing here, we are just printing the output. So the first category, where we are not taking any argument, we are not returning any value, in such functions, input will be taken inside the function definition, as well as output should be printed inside the function definition. This is very important point to remember. Come on the next category, no argument passed but a return value. In the previous lecture, we have gone through this category also. That's why we are having a short recap this time. Fine. So in this category, there are three things basically. First is the declaration, second one is the calling, and third one is the definition of the function. So come on the declaration part. In the declaration part, this second category, where no argument passed but a return value. So how we will write that function? We will write return data type in front of the function name, and the parenthesis after the function, small parenthesis, we will leave it blank, because this type of category is not taking any argument, but function is returning some value. That's why we need to write the data type of the returned value. Let's suppose my function is returning integer value. It means we need to write int. Let's suppose my function is returning character value. It means we need to write char as a data type here as a return type of the function, right? Okay, so declaration part is clear. After the declaration, what is the necessary? We need to call the function as per the requirement. So how to write the calling part if we are using this second category where function is not taking any argument, but it is returning a value? So at the time of calling, we will call the function with the function name followed by empty bracket, semicolon, but this function is basically returning something. So we require here a variable, similar type of variable, whatever we have written here as a return type. So return type of this function is int. So we need to take an integer variable here to get that value, to take that return value, to carry that returned value. So n is here. So what we are doing in this calling statement, function is called, or whatever value this function is returning, that will be saved, that will be assigned in n variable. So we'll have our final result in which variable? N. Okay. So we are understood this calling part. Then come on the function definition. Here, this is the function definition. What we are doing here, function definition is having two parts. One is the function header and another is the function body. So the function header is same as the function prototype except the semicolon. So we'll write the same here. Inside the curly braces, what we are doing, we are writing the logic of the function. Here we have taken a very small function to get an integer from the user. So what is the logic of this function? We should apply printf and scanf so that we can take a value from user. So what to require for that? We need to declare a variable n, and we need to apply the scanf function to take a value from the user. And as this function belongs to the second category where function is returning a value, so we need to return that carried value. We need to return that n to the driver function, right? Here driver function is the main, right? So this n is returned here, and this n is local for the main, and this n is the local variable for this get integer function. So that n return value will be carried in this different n variable. So whatever user have given, that will be copied in this, and then that value will be used in further logic we have understood in previous lecture, right? Come on the third category. Third category is what? Argument passed but no return value. It means what? We need to declare a function, we need to call a function, we need to define a function that is taking argument but no return value, right? So first thing is declaration part. So how to write the declaration here? We need to write, as it is having no return value, so we need to use this void keyword instead of any data type. So void is a keyword here to indicate that function is not returning anything, right? Then function name as per the rule of the identifier. After that, we will place the small bracket. Inside the small bracket, we will write the argument. Here we need to check a given number is prime or not. So we are taking a single argument here. So basically here in parenthesis, we need to write how many arguments are there, what are the data types of those arguments. Here we require only one argument, so we'll write one time int here. This n is optional. Basically we need to write optional. We will write, otherwise we can leave it as it is. So we need to write int only here on the new compilers, right? So this declaration part is clear to us. After that, this is the function calling part. Okay, so at the time of calling in this third category, as it is not returning anything, so we will write directly the function name, and in the parenthesis we will write the actual parameter. Here n is the actual parameter. So at the time of calling the function, in parenthesis, whatever we are writing are known as actual parameter. Actually, we need to find out n is prime or not. So at the time of calling, what we are saying, the parameters which are passed are known as actual parameter. At the time of function calling, whatever parameter we are passing will be passed directly without writing its data type. So if n is integer, n is character, whatever it is, we need not to bother about the data type of this. We directly write n here. Okay. So at the time of calling, we need not to bother about anything. We will just write the actual parameter without its data type. The third important thing is the function definition. At the time of function definition, function header will be same as the function prototype except this semicolon, right? Come on the function body. At the time of writing the function body, we will write the logic part, as this is the category where function is not returning any value. So what we will do? We will write the output here inside the function. We will display the output here inside the function. See carefully, here we are passing argument but no return value. We are passing argument. It means this function will not have any input value. It will directly, input value will be directly passed through the main. At the time of calling, we are passing this n, and that n is copied in this n, right? So what is happening? We are not taking any value from the user inside this user defined function, right? We are taking value from user in main, and that value is passed as an argument, and that actual argument is passed here. This is called formal argument, and this is an important concept in C programming, right? So why it is known as formal argument? Because actual argument is this n. Instead of n here, if we write t, instead of n, if we write t, then it is also okay, because it is formal parameter. The actual parameter's value is passed in this formal parameter, and that will be worked on the logic will work on the formal parameter, and actual parameter will not affect. At this time, we are passing the values basically, right? So this is about the third category. Up to here we have done. Now this is the fourth category. It is left to understand. Come on the fourth category, and this is the important one. Why it is important? Because in general, when we are using a function, we need to pass any argument on which we need to perform the logic, and the function, after performing the logic, whatever result we will get from the function, that should be returned to the driver function. That is the basic requirement when we are using user defined function. So this category is the important one. In general, we used to use such kind of function in C programming when we work on the projects, right? So here also three things we need to remember. First is the function definition part, how we will how we will declare that particular function. First of all, we will concentrate on the declaration part. As the function is returning a value, so in front of the function name, we need to write the data type. In front of the function name, we need to write the returned data type. Whatever value that particular function is returning, its data type, we will write here in front of the function name at the time of declaration, right? After the function name, we will write the small parenthesis. Inside the small parenthesis, we will write the number of arguments and its data type. Here we are using only a single argument, because a number is going to check that is a prime or not. So we require a single argument here. So its data type is int. We are checking an integer for the prime or not. So we need to write that particular argument. If let's suppose there are two integers, let's suppose we want to define a function add, which are adding two numbers, then instead of writing one integer, we will write two integers, and my function is returning the result of those sum. So this is the declaration at that time. If my function is taking two argument, right? Here we are taking one argument, fine. So this is the declaration part. It is understood now. And the second important thing is the function calling. So in this category, argument has been passed and function is returning something. So here at the time of calling, after the function name, in small parenthesis, we need to write the actual parameter, that is n here. Okay, and this function is returning some value that is of integer type. So here we need to take a variable. Here we have taken flag, integer type variable. So the value returned by the function is assigned in this flag. And after that, we are checking flag is 1 or not. If flag is 1, it means it is not a prime number. If flag is 0, it is a prime number. Right. So this is what the function calling part. So at the time of calling, parameters are used which are known as actual parameter. Then the value of this n, when function is called, compiler's control will directly come here. Basically, C program follows the sequential execution, but function calling is having higher priority. So whenever the function is called, the compiler's control will come here at the function definition without executing these statements. So first of all, compiler's control will come here, and the value of this actual parameter will be passed here in this formal parameter, right? Okay, so value of this actual parameter passed here in the this. Okay, so let's suppose this value is 5. Okay, so now 5 is in this n. This n is local for this function and this n is local for this function, right? So this n will be checked for prime number. It is prime or not. So the same logic is working here, and we need to check the number is prime or not. If number is not divisible, if number is divisible by 0, then we are returning 1, or number is not divisible by 0, then we are returning 0, right? So when we are returning 1, when number is divisible by 0, it means it is not a prime number, right? So if 1 is returned, it means what? It is not a prime number. So we need to apply logic. So if flag is 1, it means it is not a prime number. If flag is 0, sometimes then we need to print that number is prime, right? So this 0 or 1, whatever is the result, will be assigned here in this flag. So flag will contain ya to 0, ya to 1. Fine. So if it is 1, it is not a prime number. It is 0, it is a prime number. So number will be checked. So this is the important category: argument passed and a return value. Okay. Now the next concept is call by value and call by reference. We'll understand this concept in the next lecture. We'll continue with the next lecture. Thank you so much.